There are two narratives building about Caleb Williams, and they are polar opposite narratives. On the one hand, you have the people who will come out and say he is the only rookie quarterback in NFL history to have over 3,300 passing yards, 18 passing touchdowns, 6 or fewer interceptions, 450 rushing yards in their first 16 starts. He's the only one. It's a fact. Mm-hmm. Nobody else has done that. On the other side, you have the people who also state facts. Since 2021, he is by far the worst quarterback in sack avoidance and in deep ball accuracy and just plain accuracy on target throws. Which narrative is more true? You either have one of the great rookie quarterbacks or one of the Zach Wilson tier awful rookie quarterbacks. Those are the two narratives that are developing.
Well, I think you use your eyes, and your eyes tell you clearly he's not the worst quarterback that we've seen in the last 3 years. I mean, he's already better than the guy who was here previously, who started his career in 2021. And sure, sack avoidance is an important part of playing the quarterback position. Deep ball accuracy, certainly a big part of what you want to do at the quarterback position. However, what I have seen in certain situations where he plays situational football, fourth quarter, he has been really good. Now, some of that is against garbage time, but some of it is, sure, it's garbage time, but it actually gets you back into the game. It actually gets you tied up. It actually puts you in a situation, in a position to take a lead in the fourth quarter, which is something we have not seen in this city since Jay Cutler. I think that now what the first stat that you're giving me there is, I don't think that necessarily means he's the greatest quarterback or going to be the greatest quarterback of all time. But I think Caleb Williams is more likely to be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL than a guy who doesn't get a second contract with the Bears.
See, I'm kind of on the other side. I'm a little more worried than I am inspired. The 3,300 passing yards, 18 pass touchdowns, 6 or fewer interceptions, that's great. The interceptions thing being in there bothers me a little bit.
Yeah.
Because of the stretch in the middle of the season where he went about 6 games throwing the ball to no one. Throwing the ball in places where it couldn't be intercepted, it also couldn't be caught. And that buoys a low interception number. Mm-hmm. He's taken care of the ball well lately, but when you're scoring 0 points in the first half of games, definitely the first quarter, and you aren't scoring touchdowns at any level, you're not rushing for them, you're not moving the football, none of that's happening, then the interceptions, they don't mean a lot to me.
No.
That you're not throwing them.
No, the interceptions, that part to me is not really a part of my calculus for it all. In fact, I would not necessarily want to see the interception numbers go up, but I will say there is one major facet of the game that I thought was going to be a problem with him heading into this year, and that is the fumbles. That has not been an issue because that was a major problem at USC.
But it has still been a problem when it comes to taking sacks and holding the ball too long and the inaccuracy. And my issue is this. In 312-332-3776, because I want to know, are you as worried as I am, or are you more like Tyler, who's seeing more good than bad? When you are the third worst quarterback in pressure to sack ratio in the NFL, second worst actually, which does control for offensive line play, how often does a pressure become a sack? That is totally on the quarterback. 30% of the time for Caleb Williams.
It's a high number.
Brutal. Mm-hmm. It's Will Levis territory. It's 3% worse than the next closest guy, Baker Mayfield. That's a problem. Running backwards when you get pressure is a problem. And the deep ball accuracy is atrocious. You're in Anthony Richardson territory in terms of actually completing the passes. 2, PFF has Caleb Williams as the single worst graded deep ball thrower in the NFL. Those two things, when everybody cites the raw numbers and how he's the only quarterback to have this stat line as a rookie over a full season, they mention it. He holds the ball too long. He takes too many sacks. He's not accurate on deep balls. That's all fixable. My issue, I've never really seen quarterbacks fix it. When you're getting sacked 11% of your dropbacks it's not all the offensive line. A lot of it's you. And the only quarterback in my lifetime that I've seen correct sack rate and accuracy issues together is Josh Allen.
Well, I feel like the sack rate stuff, that's just a product of being a rookie quarterback. A lot of rookie quarterbacks struggle with the sack rate in year one.
11%'s more than struggling, though.
Well, I'm talking about like the pressure to sack and all, like,
Sure.
That stuff I feel like you can get better. The deep ball stuff is the most concerning for me of all the traits that we've seen not look great this year with Caleb, because the deep ball accuracy, when he was at USC, that was something that was one of these strong suits of his. That was something that I thought, all right, when he is eventually in a Bears uniform, we're going to see that downfield threat. And it's gotten to the point now where they don't even test it at times. I mean, he's had a couple of nice ones. He had the throw to Keenan Allen against the Lions. That was really, like, that's the good stuff right there. You find the tight window that you fit it through, and then Keenan does the rest. But outside of that, name the one deep ball that you remember from this year.
There isn't one.
I guess there's the Roma Dunze go up and get it ball, but that was about it.
Was that the Colts game?
No, it was
there
the
was a deep
Vikings
ball in
game.
the Colts game, too. But again,
Yeah.
we're talking about 3-4 throws over the course of an entire season.
No, listen, it's an
where he
issue.
showcased the ability.
It's an issue. Definitely is.
And I'm not going to sit here and say the book is written and that I think Caleb's a bust or you took the wrong quarterback. We should have taken Jaden Daniels. We should have taken Drake May. I'm not doing that. It's not written. But I am definitely more concerned than I have been at any other point. After watching the Seattle game, he gets sacked 7 times. And for me, 5 of them were on him, where you're just holding the ball too long. You see pressure. You start running backwards instead of climbing the pocket or instead of finding an escape route. A lot of that will come with more snaps and not being a rookie anymore and getting used to the NFL and the speed of it. But that's the hardest thing to do. And he's worse than every other rookie who has played.
Now, I will say, like, the offensive line, sure, it's an issue, but it also hasn't been consistent with what's in front of you. They were talking about this
100%.
last night on the Sunday night game, and they were talking about how the Atlanta Falcons have been the most cohesive offense. They've had the most number of snaps with the same 11 guys on the field, and they've undergone a quarterback change, and they are still the number one team in that regard there. And I think that what you've got Penix sliding into right now in this situation where he's got good weapons around him, a good back, good offensive line, an offensive line that's played with each other for the bulk of the season. The Bears just haven't had that. Tevin Jenkins leaves the game once a game. Left tackle, Braxton Jones has missed significant portions of time. Not to say he's great by any stretch. Probably not going to be your left tackle next season. But the availability on the offensive line has not been there. The guy that you paid the biggest money on your offensive line is no longer on the team. You've had Darnell Wright go in and out. The guy that you traded for at the beginning of the season that you thought was going to be your starting center, that I'm sure did the bulk of the training camp work with Caleb Williams, has been a total non-factor when he's on the field and barely even gets on the field either. So he's rolling out there with a completely different training camp front 5 in front of him. And I think for a rookie quarterback, that's an issue when you're trying to, they're putting everything on his plate that they already are. There's a lot of stuff that he's being asked to do. And then you've got a rotating cast in front of you. You never know who's going to be there. And I'm not going to sit here and make excuses for him all the time, but I think that's one of the big ones. It's not necessarily the skill level, but it's the continuity up front that's hurting him a lot.
This is also the only year that he gets excuses.
For sure.
Certainly from me. And I'll be the first to tell you he's had problems. I mean, you have multiple head coaches in your rookie season, 3 different offensive coordinators effectively. The offensive line being in flux all year. Some of the receivers not exactly helping you out. I mean, some of the drops from Keenan Allen have been brutal.
I was talking about this last night. It was something that I've noticed with Jaden and with Caleb is that each one of them have receivers who drop critical balls in critical spots. But for every
how
one
about
of
Zacchaeus last night.
Yeah, but for every one of those, there's another one where Jaden and Caleb both completely miss a dude that's wide open.
Yeah.
So it kind of evens out in the record book there.
And I think ultimately, like, people are going to look at the numbers at the end of the season, and nobody's going to dig as deep as I am and go, well, what was their pressure to sack ratio? That's just not going to happen. But when people look at the raw numbers, the difference between Jaden and Caleb isn't going to be a lot.
No.
22 touchdowns to 19 touchdowns through the air, 6 interceptions to 8 interceptions. They're both sitting around 3,300 yards. Difference is going to be in completion percentage, and it is going to be in sacks. You've got a quarterback who uses his legs to an extent even well above Caleb that's getting sacked 2/3 of the time. That's problematic to me. The pressure to sack ratio, to cite the nerd metric, Jaden's better by almost 10%. So it's not, there has to be a little bit of, this isn't just a rookie issue. Caleb is especially bad at it and a rookie. And it can get better, but how much better will it get? Because again, in my life, Josh Allen is pretty much the only quarterback that has corrected both to a meaningful degree. The other who's come close is Jalen Hurts. And if you're banking on Caleb being Jalen Hurts or Josh Allen, I hope he's got 100 pounds that he can add to his frame.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, he's not that kind of player. And maybe he's just Kyler Murray, which would be fine. I
always thought his play style, his floor was always Kyler.
Watching Kyler this weekend, there were moments where I'm like, maybe that's just who Caleb is, which hopefully you can elevate it a little bit and be a better version of that. But the Mahomes thing, I
Got
feel
a long
like
way to go.
I feel like we would have seen it by now, a little bit more than we have. And Mahomes' number one skill is sack avoidance. It's if you sack him, it's like a miracle.
Yeah.
And this year he's taken more than ever. He's still not taking a ton.
Yeah, and what was they were talking about it with Jordan Love. Like one of the best things that he does is his sack avoidance, and it's something that has really transformed his career. Now, I will say there are quarterbacks who have been good, and I think there's quarterbacks who played at a caliber that I think we would accept Caleb Williams to be. And one guy in particular, I think, is a Russell Wilson. Like Russell Wilson, even when forget like the Steelers and Broncos, Russell Wilson, when Russell Wilson was good, when Russell Wilson
was
like top 5, top 7 quarterback in football, he had a sack problem there. So sure, it never really corrected. He still has issues with that, and part of that's his age now. But he's one of those guys who, if Caleb Williams can become Russell Wilson for this team, I think everyone would take that.
And he was kind of the original guy for like, oh, Russell Wilson, his offensive line is terrible. And then you'd watch the games and you'd go, wait a minute, his offensive line's not that bad. He's just
holding.
Doing loop-de-loops in the back. Mm-hmm. And like your guys can't protect for that long. It's impossible. No. 312-332-3776. I want to get your calls on this. Because, look, I am getting very worried about Caleb. And the raw numbers are good. And this is not, should we have kept Justin Fields? Because he's clearly better than Justin Fields. But the reality is, the biggest 2 problems with Justin Fields, for me, are the biggest 2 problems with Caleb Williams right now. And they're the 2 things that historically are the most difficult to correct with young quarterbacks. I am hitting peak concern levels with Caleb. And I want to know if you're as concerned as I am, or if you're more like Aki. And if you're not concerned, tell me why. Convince me that we're all good and everything is just peachy keen, all going to be great when Caleb comes back and we retool the O-line. Going to be fantastic.